Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben. I'm your host, Ben, and I'm excited to have you join me as we journey into the mysterious world of the paranormal. Today we will share some fascinating stories that blend history with hauntings, heritage with the unexplained. So sit back, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for an eerie adventure as we delve into the ghostly tales and supernatural secrets of Maryborough, Queensland. Located in the heart of Queensland, Australia, Maryborough is a charming town with a European history dating back to 1847. Situated on the banks of the Mary River, Maryborough is one of Queensland's oldest towns. It has grown from a small settlement into a thriving community. Originally settled as a wool port, it also served as the Fraser Coast immigration port in the early days of Australian settlement, second only to Sydney as the eastern seaboard port for free settlers coming into the country. The town's name originates from Lady Mary Fitzroy, the wife of Sir Charles Augustus Fitzroy, who was the Governor of New South Wales during the mid-19th century. Known as the Heritage City, Maryborough boasts several majestic, heritage-listed buildings, some dating back to the 1800s. Walking through the city's Wharf Street precinct is like stepping back in time. Several blocks of heritage-listed buildings and streets have been meticulously restored to resemble their appearance over a century ago. Maryborough is also famously associated with the beloved character Mary Poppins. The town is the birthplace of P.L. Travers, the author of Mary Poppins books. Born Helen Lydon Goff in 1899, Travers lived in Maryborough during her early childhood. This connection is celebrated throughout the town, most notably with a statue of Mary Poppins erected outside the heritage-listed bank building, where Travers' father worked as the manager. Each year, Maryborough hosts the Mary Poppins Festival, a whimsical celebration of the iconic nanny. The festival features a variety of events, including parades, storytelling sessions, and performances that bring the magic of Mary Poppins to life. Visitors can also explore the Maryborough Story Bank, an interactive museum dedicated to the literary history of the town and the story of Mary Poppins. Maryborough is not just a town of historical significance, but also a place of literacy heritage, adding a magical charm to its rich and diverse cultural tapestry. But beneath its idyllic facade, Maryborough holds secrets and stories of the past that are waiting to be uncovered. The town's history includes its darker moments, from the struggles of the indigenous peoples to the brutal treatment of convicts and the tragic loss of life during World War I. These events have contributed to the numerous reports of paranormal activity, ghost sightings, and unexplained occurrences that add a layer of mystery to Maryborough's historical narrative. Listeners, welcome back. Today I have a truly special lineup for you. Joining me once again is none other than the remarkable psychic medium Nicky M from Crossroads with Spirit. Nicky, welcome back to the show. It's an absolute pleasure as always to have you here for your third episode with me. And listeners, get ready to welcome a fresh voice to the Eerie Enigma Paranormal family. Joining me today is Karena, a seasoned paranormal investigator. Karena, it's fantastic to finally have you on the show. This moment has been a long time coming.
Hey, everybody, and thank you very much, Ben. It's great to be back.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ben, so much for having me.
Ladies, welcome to the show. Now, can you both share a bit about your background in the paranormal field for our listeners?
With regard to the background in the paranormal field for me, being a psychic medium, although I do investigate the paranormal, my technique is done a lot differently. as I don't utilize the equipment, and it's mainly just myself and my guides. And the way I do it is I have the ability to see spirit with my eyes, and I can hear them and I communicate with them that way.
Thanks, Nikki. Karina, what's your background?
I've always been intrigued and believed in the paranormal. And my background started quite a few years ago when I was at my friend's place who lived not far from me. It was early hours of the morning and there was these massive bangs on the hallway walls inside. I was in bed at that time, and at one stage it was right outside my bedroom door, to the point is I thought it was going to come through the door. With that, we got a local paranormal team to investigate. I wish they did, and they come up with a lot of stuff. And it was basically more to do with the land that the house was on, not the house in particular. So that gave me even more interest, and I just wanted more. So I've joined a couple of paranormal teams over the years, and I've investigated so much, from jails to institutions to asylums to lots and lots of stuff. And I thoroughly enjoy it, and I can't get enough. It's most interesting for me, and I just absolutely love it.
Thanks, Karina, and I can totally relate to that, and I'm sure many people out there can as well. We all have those pivotal moments that ignite our curiosity and drive us to seek more. Now, dubbed one of Queensland's most haunted towns due to its darker moments in history, ladies, what initially drew you both to Maryborough? And what were your initial impressions?
What drew me to Maryborough actually was a show, like the Weekender or the Creek to Coast, those sorts of shows. I was actually watching one of those, would have been years ago, and they did a special on Maryborough and mentioned, of course, Mary Poppins, etc. And during that episode, they spoke about the many haunted places in Maryborough and part of the history. And for myself, I thought, well, that's a place I want to visit, a place I want to see and explore and investigate. For I felt there was a lot there to be said, and a lot to be heard, and a lot to be found out.
For me, it's always been on my bucket list to visit Maryborough. My great grandfather lived there, and I still have family there. And as I get more experience in the paranormal field, my curiosity just grew bigger and bigger, and I love deep diving into history. And there's so much history there on Wharf Street. It's just a place bursting with energy and stories waiting to be uncovered. Now, when I embark on these investigations, I purposely refrain from delving into extensive research beforehand. Instead, I solely rely on my senses, allowing myself to approach each exploration with a blank slate. It's a method that's served me well, and I find myself particularly sensitive to residual energy at times. And on the night before the investigation, I was driving down Wharf Street with a friend, and we were capturing footage for my YouTube channel and familiarizing ourselves with the area. As we neared the Criterion pub, I felt a distinct energy intertwine with my own, leaving me unexpectedly agitated. Despite my unease, we pressed on, postponing our exploration until the following evening. Now, little did I know that this encounter was just the beginning of a series of intriguing events waiting to unfold. Karina, what about yourself?
I absolutely love Maryborough. My grandparents grew up there before moving to the Gold Coast when I was a little girl. So I've always had an interest in Maryborough. I drop in there quite often when I go to see my family in Bundaberg. I absolutely like it. It's like I've got a country feel to Maryborough. I actually feel at home there. I'm very aware of how haunted the place is, especially on Wharf Street. You feel it. You can feel it when you're there.
That country feeling you described resonates with me as well. And yes, Wharf Street definitely has a unique energy. It's like the history of the place comes alive around you. Now, let's delve into our investigation. Picture this, a mild November evening in 2022. the air heavy with anticipation as we gathered at the imposing Criterion Hotel on Wharf Street. But before we embarked on our quest for the paranormal, let me set the scene for you. The Criterion Hotel stands as a towering monument to Maryborough's past, shrouded in a haunting aura that seems to seep from its very bricks. Built in 2 stages between 1878 and 1883, it looms ominously on Wharf Street, its 3 stories casting long shadows over the Mary River below. Its facade adorned with a hipped corrugated iron roof, hidden by a parapet boasting a linked circular balustrade, holds secrets within its weathered walls. Verandas snake along the first and second floors, their simple timber posts and cross-braced balustrading offer scant protection from the eerie atmosphere that hangs thick in the air. Once you step inside, the building's true nature reveals itself. The ground floor, though altered over the years, still echoes with the whispers of its past. Infilled openings hint at forgotten entrances, while half-glazed French doors beckon the curious to explore further. Venturing up the creaking staircase, one finds themselves immersed in a maze of corridors, each lined with doors leading to dimly lit rooms. 4-panelled doors stand guard, their large transom windows peering into the darkness like watchful eyes. Some windows, covered with punched metal sheeting, seem to trap the building's secrets within, refusing to reveal what lies beyond. As night falls, the building takes on a life of its own. Shadows dance along the walls, and the air grows heavy with an unspoken presence. Those brave enough to linger on the verandas may catch glimpses of movement in the darkness or feel icy fingers brush against their skin. The Criterion Hotel is more than just a historic landmark. It's a portal to another world, where the past and present collide in a symphony of whispers and shadows. And on Wharf Street, where the veil between worlds is thinnest, the spirits of the past roam freely, their presence palpable to those who dare to listen. I vividly recall the moment we congregated at the front of the imposing Criterion Hotel, our hearts pounding with anticipation of the mysteries that awaited us within its shadowy depths. With torches in hand, we ventured cautiously around the perimeter of the building, the darkness of the alleyway enveloping us like a cloak. As we made our way to the rear of the pub, passing by old dilapidated structures that seemed to whisper tales of ages past, a profound sense of unease settled over me. It was as if the very air was thick with sorrow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. Standing there in the dim light, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, a sensation so palpable it sent shivers down my spine. Now little did I know this feeling was not unfounded. Our investigation would later reveal the tragic truth. 2 sisters, one just 18 months old and the other a mere 12 years old, lay buried nearby together, victims of consumption and time's merciless grip. In that moment, the veil between the past and present seemed to blur, and I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows of the Criterion Hotel. After this encounter outside, we mustered up our courage and ventured back inside. The air inside the Criterion Hotel felt heavy with anticipation as we gathered around a table strategically placed on the dance floor. Despite the seemingly empty space, I couldn't help but shake the sensation of unseen eyes watching us from the DJ booth above. As we settled into our seats, a hush fell over the group, our hearts beating in unison with the rhythm of the night. It was that then Nicky, our guide through the mysteries of the unknown, prepared to lead us on an evening journey into the realm of spirit readings. Nicky and Karena, I'm curious to hear your reflections of the Criterion Hotel. What were the sensations that washed over you both? How did the atmosphere of the place resonate with you?
As a medium's perspective, that when I entered the Criterion Hotel, I found this place incredible. Within the first half an hour of my arrival, I physically heard somebody whistling, and while the others were on a completely different floor, that when they came down, I had confirmation from the managers that, yes, one of the workers, the caretaker, whistled while he worked. And I had physically heard this. Throughout, many times there, I have often heard humming, I've heard singing, I have smelt perfume, I've heard footsteps many times, the footsteps. I've heard almost like children laughing and playing. I've heard animals, like dogs. I've heard conversations that I knew were not happening in this realm. It's an incredible place with a lot of history and a truckload of emotions, and an incredible place.
Thanks, Nikki. I just remember as we sat there in silence, awaiting the commencement of your spirit session, there was a palpable sense of anticipation that hung in the air. Yet beneath the surface, there was an undeniable tension, a feeling that we were not alone in that room. It was as if unseen eyes bore into us, scrutinizing our every move. For me, the sensation was eerily familiar, reminiscent of the energy that I had encountered the previous evening. Once again, I felt its presence intertwining with my own, sending a shiver down my spine yet again. The feeling of agitation crept over me once more, and a knot was forming in the pit of my stomach. And as Nikki, you began your readings, I found myself drawn into a deeply personal experience with you. Your words cut through the silence, offering insights that struck a chord within me. You spoke of the need to prioritize myself and my health, reassuring me that everything was manageable. But it was your acknowledgement of my past struggles and your gentle encouragement to let go that truly resonated with me. And it was in this vulnerable moment that the energy seemed to seize its opportunity to provoke me. It manifested as an unsettling presence, a heavy bit of force that loomed over me like a dark cloud. It felt like the air grew thick with tension, weighing me down with its intimidating presence. Then, as if to confirm its spitefulness, a whisper cut through the silence, a chilling reminder of my past traumas. You deserved it. Now, this echoed your words, Nikki, about releasing the past, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. This energy was listening to every word in that room that night. Now, in that moment, the line between the physical and the paranormal blurred for me, leaving me with a sense of unease. Karena, what about your experiences?
My experiences at the Criterion, when you're at the back, it has a feel of being watched. I've witnessed black shadows that move very quickly on that second floor on many occasions. I've had whistles, I've had smells, and not so nice sometimes with the smells. We have done lots of EVPs, and we have evidence of answers to our questions on that night. Had lots of children's spirit that come through on our equipment at Criterion, which is quite interesting. There seems to be a lot of children spirit in Wolf Street generally.
Children and whistling seem to be reoccurring themes here, but that isn't surprising given its proximity to the wharves. It's as if the echoes of the past linger on.
During the many visits to the Criterion Hotel, for myself personally, I experienced many things. From even there were little ones you could hear that were actually giggling and they were talking, and we had equipment for them, and they loved this little bear that would light up and talk, and these little ones, and you could hear them running around. It was an amazing place. It still is. And Maryborough itself has a lot to tell. It has a lot to say. There's a lot to it and a lot of stories. And there's a lot in the aspect of so much history, so much trauma and tragedy has happened. And I'll never forget, even myself, the first day that I arrived there, and that afternoon I was sitting out the front, and it was next to the military museum. And at first because of what I do with my mediumship, I can see spirit. And at first I thought that something was going on, like some kind of parade. And then I realized that what I was looking at was actually spirit. And what I was experiencing was soldiers. And they were literally crossing the road and walking up and down in front of the hotel and the museum. And they stopped. And one of the gentlemen, the spirit that had passed, spoke to me and told me his name, where he was, and all this information about him. Well, unbeknownst to me, we then went into the military museum, and I didn't know this. I'd never been in there. We went upstairs, and I said, "Oh, that's the man." And I saw the statue. I said, "That's the man. That's who I saw." And I had his name as, I think it was Douglas or Dougie that they called him. And it was him, and that he was a statue, and we confirmed his name. And I didn't know anything about him. I told them what they looked like, what he had looked like, in his uniform and his moustache and everything. And I didn't know anything about him. And he kept saying, "I'm in the museum," and I've never been there. And I mean, that's just one of the experiences of Maryborough.
Yeah, the military museum in Maryborough is truly incredible. It has a treasure trove of history that honours both the town and the brave soldiers who fought for Australia. The museum is filled with artifacts and exhibits that vividly recount the stories of sacrifice and valour from various conflicts, particularly World War One. I remember my visit vividly. My friend and I were the only ones there. We were enveloped in an almost palpable silence that seemed to hang in the air like a veil of energy. And as we wandered through the exhibits, the atmosphere felt so charged with history. And despite the quiet, I was suddenly overwhelmed with a strong sensation of smells, gunpowder in particular, and musty uniforms. It was as if the past was reaching out through the decades and centuries. My fatigue was setting in and making the experience even more surreal. Then something truly uncanny happened. One of the World War One caps perched on a mannequin seemed to shift slightly, as if nudged by an invisible hand. Almost at the same time, a dark shadow darted out from behind the display, moving so quickly I barely registered it. Karina, over to you. I'd love to hear more about your experiences at the Criterion.
I've had so many experiences at the Criterion, but the one that stands out for me the most was when a small group of us paranormal investigators went to Maryborough to investigate the old Criterion Heritage listed pub on Wharf Street. We began with a walk around at the back of the pub before entering and setting up our equipment for the night. I set up in the back room. I put down some stuffed toys, example, a teddy bear and a rabbit. Psychic Medium Nicky was there with me, and that's when it started. Nicky could see the spirit children come to check out the toys. They were all so excited. They hadn't seen all this equipment before and started asking questions. Nicky had to slow them down, saying, okay, Bubby, one at a time." Then one turned to the other and said, "Let's go and get the others." Then with that, off they went. In the meantime, the other investigators were upstairs with equipment and checking things out. Then I remember one investigator, who was a medium also, came down saying she's feeling a burning sensation in her throat. It was very uncomfortable for her. She kept rubbing her throat. So we decided to do some EVPs to ask some questions. While that was happening, a couple of children came forward to talk to Nicky. Nicky started to talk and noticed a lady spirit standing behind them in a distance. Nicky started talking to her, and we used the EVPs, and we found out that her name was Mary, and the children that we were talking to were hers. She had followed us to the Criterion as she was attached to the area around the pub. The children wouldn't discuss how they passed, but said Mum was stuck and couldn't cross over. We began using our equipment again, and Mary told us she was scared of crossing over because of being judged. We told her there was no judgment and to go towards the light. Mary's children were calling to her, "Come on, Mum, come on." They wanted to go towards the light. They were all excited to go over, but Mum was still hesitant. After a short period of communication with Mary and her children, Nicky set the scene as she was in touch with spirit. In the back area of the Criterion, where it was all dark, Archangel Michael and Archangel Azrael came down to assist the goddesses to help Mary cross over. Nicky told us we all had to visualize a pink and gold ribbon of light. That is what Mary hung on to pull herself through. With lots of encouragement from us and the archangels and the goddesses and the children of Mary's, she finally went through that light. And then as soon as Mary went to the other side, everything stopped. Everything just disappeared. The music stopped and the room again was dark. That's just one of the experiences I've had at the Criterion. And that was one huge one that I'll never forget. I'll never forget. I'll never have probably the opportunity again. It's not something that happens every day on an investigation. It was just the right time, the right place, and Mary felt comfortable to get us to help her, which was lovely.
Wow, what an incredible experience, and a very rare one as that as well. I can only imagine the emotions running high when Nikki saw the spirit children and started communicating with them. It's really beautiful how you all work together to help them. Helping a spirit cross over is such a compassionate and profound act. Thank you for sharing this heartfelt experience, Karena. Nikki, I would love to hear your recollections as a psychic medium of this truly touching moment.
I remember this moment. It was actually quite profound. When Mary came through, the nightclub area was lit up, and here was his mother dressed. Sort of reminded me of Little House on the Prairie. And she was quite upset. And when we got to the bottom of it, her children, who were also spirit, and they hadn't been reunited together. So with divine beings and Mary's help and the children's help, I communicated with all of them and we linked them all up together. And it was really quite profound. It was a moment I'll actually never forget. As usually when you do a paranormal investigation, that's what you're doing. You're investigating the paranormal, those that are simply already there, those that are already present. And Mary was present. It was amazing, though, to see how she thought of herself and how she felt and what she did and what she experienced. And then on top of that, with her children and bringing them together was incredible. It was like all these goddesses, I suppose is the only way to describe it, all linked arm in arm. And at one end was Mary and at the other was the children. And the colours were profound. They were absolutely beautiful. There were golds, there were pinks, there were beautiful blues and greens. And the feeling was nothing but absolute love. And it was like a moment actually stopped in time. As I said, we had an investigation. Well, everything just went on hold. And we just simply asked for love to be sent. And they were beautifully reignited. And this reunion was something I've not experienced. It was incredible. It was just one of those moments that leaves you speechless. And I really had no words. And even to describe it now, I really have no words because it was just one of those wow moments.
Now, listeners, not all encounters with the other side are as touching as the story of Mary and her children. There's one spirit in particular who is said to haunt the Criterion Hotel, known for his overwhelming presence. and interestingly enough, he seems to primarily affect males. My experience began after I stepped outside for some fresh air. When I returned, I saw my friend deeply engaged in automatic spirit writing. Earlier, I had felt a heavy sense of unease accompanied by a whispering voice that chillingly said, "You deserved it." That feeling had just begun to lift, but little did I know that it was only the beginning of a much more intense encounter. Curious about my friend's progress with the experiment, I asked her how it was going. She looked at me with concern and said, "You're not going to like this, but your initials have just been spelled out. B.T." I laughed it off, thinking she must be joking. "No," she insisted, her expression serious and her hand abruptly stopping mid-writing as she felt the overwhelming energy coming through. At that very moment, a group of investigators nearby were conducting a session with a spirit board, also known as a Ouija board. Suddenly I hear one of them exclaim, "Oh my God," followed by spelling out of the letters B-E-N. The timing was unnerving. Both the automatic writing and the spirit board had singled me out by name. The air grew thick with tension, and we all realized that this was no coincidence. The spirit's presence became almost palpable, a heavy, oppressive force that seemed to focus solely on me. My friend suggested we try a spirit board session, just the two of us, as the spirit seemed to have a peculiar interest in my energy. Despite my nerves, I decided to push on, driven by a mixture of curiosity and a desire for answers. We carefully placed our fingers on the planchette, taking a moment to ask for guidance and protection from the spirits around us. With a deep breath, we began the session. The air felt charged with anticipation, and I could sense the presence of something unseen, watching and waiting. My friend initiated the first question. "Can you tell us the name of the spirit that has been affecting Ben?" For a few moments, nothing happened. Then slowly but surely, the planchette began to move. My heart raced as it spelled out the first letter, J. My friend and I exchanged glances but remained focused. The planchette continued to glide deliberately across the board, revealing each letter. O, H, N. John. The name hung in the air like an echo, and I could feel a chill run down my back. The planchette paused, as if the spirit was waiting to see our reaction. "John," I repeated, trying to steady my voice. "Why are you here, John, and what do you want?" The planchette began to move again, this time with more urgency. It spelled out B-E-N, and then started to spell out my surname. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I could feel the atmosphere in the room grow heavier, the energy around us more oppressive. My friend squeezed my hand, her eyes wide with concern. Why was this spirit seeking me? What connection could I possibly have to a spirit called John? My mind raced with possibilities, trying to piece together a puzzle that spanned beyond this physical world. We closed the session as I was feeling quite uneasy, with a prayer for John's peace, hoping to offer some solace to his restless soul. But that wasn't the last of him. Nicky and Karena, have you had an encounter with the spirit of John?
My experiences with John were at first not nice. They've never been nice. As the first time I laid eyes on him, he was walking towards me and all bloodied everywhere. It was actually quite gruesome, as his injuries of how he passed were quite visual to me. Now, over the time with him, I too have at times been drawn to him and wanting to talk to him.
Wow. Okay, that sounds like something straight out of a nightmare. What torment he must have endured to present himself to you like that, Nikki.
However, although I do make my own decisions, I was advised by my guides that at this stage, no, we do not want you conversing with him at all on any level. Now, even to this very day, I often think, did he really commit suicide, or was he actually murdered? That I don't know. I've never received the answer, and I guess it's maybe a subject that is not to be spoken too much about. However, if I ever do get the opportunity, I would like to find out more. But every time he came anywhere near me, it wasn't a nice feeling. I felt physical things, like I felt nauseous. I felt, as I said before, an urgency, and then I felt so much fear, then so much anger. It was incredible. It was overwhelming, and it was very intense and very full on. And at times when I had dealt with him, which were only for short moments of time, I was very drained afterwards, every single time. So I do wish him well, but it is an experience that I really don't want to rush to feel again.
And that seems to be the reoccurring theme here with John, that it's definitely an experience for everyone and they wish him well, but they don't want to encounter him again. And I have to agree with them. I don't want to encounter him at all. Karena, I'm intrigued. Have you encountered John?
The experiences I've encountered with John is that he comes through on our investigations at the Criterion often. He was cranky and bossy. Other spirits would actually leave our connections due to what they would say, cranky man. Some spirits would tell us that they were actually scared of John. So yes, that's John, the cranky man spirit, wasn't so nice to connect with when we did our investigations at the Criterion. That's what I experienced from John.
These experiences add another layer of darkness to John's already ominous presence. Describing him as cranky and bossy, and with the power to drive away other spirits, marks him as a tyrant in the spectral realm. The fact that even other spirits fear him, referring to him as the cranky man, speaks volumes about his oppressive aura that he exudes. It seems that there is a constant battle to maintain any sense of peace during investigations here, with such a domineering entity looming over you. These experiences paint a bleak picture of John's influence. He is not merely a restless spirit, but a force of hostility, an echo of past horrors that continue to reverberate through time. Now, let's jump back to the evening of the investigation. After stepping outside for some air to ground myself from the overpowering energy of John, after that confronting Ouija board encounter, I returned to sit with my friend. We decided to venture upstairs and see what secrets we could uncover. Now, upstairs felt noticeably lighter and with no sign of John's oppressive presence. We decided to run some EVP sessions with my spirit doll Mabel, who usually attracts spirits from her time period of the 1920s. Now it was eerily quiet, almost too quiet for a building with such a rich history. And as Karena had mentioned before, John had a tendency to scare away other spirits. and I could sense that this was what was happening. I moved back downstairs to the bar, and as soon as I entered, I started to feel aggravated and overwhelmed. My friend noticed that I was acting out of character, and at this point, the spirit balls on the table where we were sitting started to light up. John was in the room with us. We exchanged uneasy glances and asked John to leave, telling him he was not welcome. The spirit balls lit up again, signaling John's persistence and presence. My friend, a psychic medium, called upon Archangel Michael for protection and to help cut any ties. I kept looking behind me, feeling a constant presence. My eyes were wide and dark, and the spirit ball lit up again, flashing. I started to laugh randomly, which was very odd in that moment. I tried to stay calm, closing my eyes to channel the archangels to remove John's energy. My friend asked if I felt better, to which I replied, "I don't think so." They suggested I take a break and move outside to be regrounded. And as I was about to leave, the spirit ball lit up again, flashing. My friend said, "I don't think you particularly like me or Ben, do you?" The spirit ball lit up again, confirming John's communication through this method. During this time, I started to laugh again for no apparent reason. My friend explained that John's energy was merging with mine, causing me to react this way. He was laughing through me, finding the entire situation amusing. Just as we thought John was leaving, my whole body jolted, and my legs were covered in goosebumps as a rush of energy surged through me. I started to feel less agitated, and it's hard to explain. I felt normal, yet not entirely myself. Rewatching the footage later, I could tell that it wasn't 100% me. I went outside to ground myself, and I still fully can't explain what happened. I pulled myself together, and we all went upstairs as a group to conduct an EVP session. We called John to come and speak to us. John's energy began affecting a few people in the group. "It's not okay and it's not acceptable, John," we said. The next question we posed was, "Do you want us to come back next year, John?" Replaying the EVP, we heard an unidentified voice say no. And then again, I said no. I'm going to play a clip from my recording of the captured EVP. Let me replay that one more time for you. I've tried to enhance the capture. Unless you're wearing headphones, it is hard to hear. The first part you can hear a no, and the second part, I said no. Now listen to this next EVP capture. It was captured just before the no and I said no. Let me replay that one more time for you. Now, what you heard there, listeners, was a disembodied voice saying please. Now, to me, these two EVPs sound like different spirits. It's almost as if one spirit was trying to overpower the others. And well, that is on theme with John. What do you think, listeners? Is this the disembodied voice of John, who died 162 years ago? I believe it very well could be, but I'll leave you to be the judge. This chilling encounter with John serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable and often unsettling nature of the paranormal. His presence was overpowering and invasive, leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved. I'm going to read you a newspaper article from the 30th of December 1862 from the North Australian and Queensland General Advertiser. A rumour was current in town during yesterday, which proved too true, that Mr. John Kent committed suicide at Maryborough. A few days since, by cutting his throat, and created a painful feeling amongst all who knew him. The subjoined particulars from the Maryborough correspondence to the Courier under the date of the 27th instant. It is my painful duty to record one of those awful occurrences by which the whole community is agitated, and which will also, without doubt, create a considerable degree of sensation amongst the older inhabitants of Brisbane and Ipswich. For some time past, it had been noticed by friends and relations of Mr. John Kent that he was in a deposing state of mind, so much so in fact that it is reported by Mrs. Kent had lately kept his razors out of sight. On the arrival of the Queensland on Christmas Day, he went on board and spoke to some old friends who arrived in her, and was noticed as being very quiet in his manner. The day wore on, and the evening was spent with his wife under the veranda of his own house. At about 9 o'clock he appears to have left the veranda, and was thought to have gone into a sitting room to read. And it was not until something like 3/4 of an hour had elapsed that any notice was taken of his absence. On inquiry, however, he was not to be found in the house. An alarm was felt, and a search was made in the garden. The unfortunate and misguided man was found with a wound about 1 inch long in the throat, which had separated the jugular vein and the main artery, and must have caused instant death. The wound was inflicted by one of the pen blades of a 4-bladed pocket knife. Alarm was immediately given, and the body was removed into the house. A magisterial inquiry was held before the mayor yesterday morning, which terminated in finding that death had resulted from the deceased's own act in fit of temporary insanity. Much sympathy is felt for the widow and children, as it is feared the peculiar arrangements of the deceased are in the most unsatisfactory condition. The funeral is to take place at 11 o'clock this morning. Mr. Kent in early life entered into government service of Great Britain in connection with the Commissary Department, and after being engaged in active service in different parts of the globe, arrived in Sydney almost 25 years ago as Deputy Commissary. Was about 2 years afterward transferred to Moreton Bay District, in which capacity he remained some years. He then returned to England and was shortly afterwards ordered to the Cape of Good Hope, where he once again returned to England. After remaining in England a short time, he finally left there for this colony, for the purpose of settling down as a colonist, and shortly after his arrival, in conjunction with Mr. A. May, established the very first sawmill in Moreton Bay at Shaftston, on the Brisbane River. The speculation, however, proved a failure, and Mr. Kent, who had previously been intimately engaged in connection with the press as correspondent in the West Indies, we believe to the London Times, and in Moreton Bay as correspondent to the Sydney Morning Herald, took the editorship of the North Australian, which position he occupied for between 5 and 6 years, until his appointment of the commencement of last year as Police Magistrate of Maryborough. As a writer, Mr. Kent was vigorous but sarcastic, thoroughly independent, severe in opposing what he thought to be wrong, and at the same time equally determined in upholding what he believed to the cause of right. Even after 162 years, John's story remains a sombre chapter in Maryborough's history, painting a picture of a once prominent man whose tragic end left a lasting shadow. His sarcastic demeanour and unyielding determination, traits that likely defined him in life, have followed him beyond the veil, anchoring his restless spirit to this world. Even after that intense night, John's haunting presence remains a dark shadow over Maryborough. Despite our attempts to communicate, guide, and even offer him peace, He remains a restless spirit, unwilling or unable to move on. His energy lingers in the Criterion, a constant reminder of the unresolved pain and anger that binds him to this place. Visitors to the Criterion still report unsettling encounters of cold spots, whispering voices, and the feeling of being watched. Male guests in particular often speak of a heavy oppressive presence that seems to target them specifically, a testament to John's enduring bitterness. The spirit balls and other equipment continue to light up in his presence, confirming that John is still very much here, making his presence known. John's story is one of tragedy and unresolved torment, a grim chapter in the history of Maryborough. His spirit remains tethered to this world, haunting the Criterion and the memories of those who dare to cross his path. As much as we hope for peace for all our spirits, some, like John, seem destined to linger in the shadows, their restless souls a reminder of the mysteries and sorrows that lie just beyond our understanding. And so, the legend of John Kent, the restless spirit of Maryborough, endures, an eerie echo of the past that continues to haunt the present, his story woven into the very fabric of this historic town. Listeners, that is the end of this episode. We hope you have enjoyed joining us on this journey. Nicky and Karena, thank you so much for joining me on Mysteries of Maryborough. It has been an absolute pleasure. Now, ladies, before you go, let our listeners know what is on the horizon for you both. Now, we do have something exciting coming up in July, but you will all have to keep watching and listening to find out what we get up to.
Thanks, Ben. It's been great. I have a few investigations coming up, one being next month, which I'm super excited about. Can't say much about that at the moment, but you know what I'm talking about. Then I'm off to Bunya Mountains with Katie Harvey. So we'll probably do some private investigations. We like to, just do some things that we do. Then in September, I'm off to Melbourne for a sleepover investigation at the Old Lansfield Hospital. That'll be very interesting. Yeah, so that one, I can't wait for that one also. The next year, I'm off to do some adventures like the Paranormal Expo in Melbourne, possibly Asylum while we're down there. And we're still trying to do the itinerary. So there's going to be lots more to it and doing lots more investigations and things like that. It's just not yet concrete as to where we're going. But yep, all can't wait to do because that's what I love doing. Thanks again, Ben. And yes, thank you everyone for listening.
Hey, Ben. Hey, everyone. Well, I've got a few things coming up. However, I can't kind of talk about them too much. I too have got an investigation in July. There are a few things I'm just thinking that I know I've got coming up, but I can't sort of talk about them just yet. But they are fantastic and they delve into different avenues and aspects of the paranormal. Some more to do universal and some to do more with the supernatural. But that's all I can say. I guess you'll just have to wait and find out. Thanks again, everyone, and take it easy.
I love how mysterious we all sound, but it's so good to hear that we're all doing things that we love. Thank you for joining me on this latest episode, and until next time. This has been an Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben production. Share your captivating paranormal tales with me to feature on upcoming episodes. Connect with me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or Spotify. Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben. Your stories are waiting to be told.